Welcome back to the Subtitled Anime Podcast. It has been probably, I don't know, like 3 years. I think the last thing I did, I think it was 2021. I think the last episode I recorded of this podcast was 2021. If you follow this YouTube channel, you know that there has been one fringe upload since 2020, and it was a YouTube short on the Sound Euphonium season 3 opening. But listen, I never retired. I did not Michael Jordan. I did not give a formal retirement. You know, if I feel like doing content, I'm going to do content. Look at that. We have a stream layout. This is not being streamed. But you know, we have a layout. We got stuff going on, and we're back, baby. And I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, for this podcast. And with me today to talk about Sound Euphonium season 3 is none other than Under the Scope Zone, Jack Johnson.
Thank you for having me. You know, I'm pretty sure that the inaugural episode of this podcast was the two of us talking about UFO, if I remember correctly.
It was a dual announcement of Chikano Finale and Liz and the Bluebird, although I think at the time it was called Final Oath. So that's for the OGs out there. But UFO's back. We're back. We're happy.
We're so back.
We've never been more back.
Happy. The characters are not happy.
They're not. It's misery. And that's what we've always wanted. And that's what we're gonna talk about all of that today. So as of this recording, Monday, June 3rd, 2024, episode 9 just dropped, directed and storyboarded by Taichi Isidate. That came out on Sunday at the wee hours of the morning. And we're just kind of gonna go through that episode this season. It's kind of like that's been the big turning point, I think, you know, in the plot and everything so far. So we're going to kind of talk about that. Because listen, there's just so much to talk about. Jack, I don't even know where to start. This season, let's start from the top.
Okay.
I think when Ensemble Contest, the OVA came out, that reassured me of the direction that season 3 would go. Because after Liz, I think we were every UFO fan was over the fucking moon. We're like, this is arguably the greatest anime film ever. It is, in my opinion, the best content out of Sound Euphonium. It is an artistic, it is a paragon of craft, as our friend Dan says. And it was an adequate sequel for what was to come. Chikano Finale comes out a year after, I think. And it disappointed, I think, longtime fans of the series. It felt rushed. It felt condensed. To tell that story within one single film, 2 novels, essentially, or 1.5 novels, you know, within an hour and 40-minute film, just did not do it justice. Skipped over a lot of content, a lot of character stuff. And I think we were kind of down on also the departures at Kyoto Animation. You know, notably Naoko Yamada and Haruka Fujita, who they both had huge prominent roles on UFO season 1 and 2 respectively. And Ishihara manning Chikano Finale, kind of Tatsuya Ishihara, the main series director for the series, was kind of solo, and we weren't super keen on that. And excuse my rambling, but that's kind of to lay the stage, Jack, for Ensemble Contest comes out in 2023. And brother, we were so bad. You right?
Yeah, you know, we were, and because I think even with Liz, right? Like, for obviously as incredible as we both think it is, it's you know, I think both of our favorite anime movie of all time, if not just movie, period.
Oh yeah, film
piece of media, period. It also is stylistically, you know, on its own. It's very different from UFO TV series. So between how different Liz was and then, you know, what we felt about Chikano Finale, it really did feel like it had been since season 2, since we had like that sort of OG UFO vibe. And that was kind of my biggest takeaway with the Oncon OVA, was that it brought back those, like, that feeling of what it was like watching the TV show during that original run, which at this point was 8 years ago, or 6 years ago. Wait, no, yeah, 8 years ago. Yeah, which is crazy to say. Yeah. It's literally the lifetime of my channel. I started making YouTube videos basically when UFO season 1 premiered. So it's been that long. But no, it was a return to form. It really like gave me so much confidence in Ishihara's direction with the series after, since like Chikai no Finale was kind of like his first foray, like being the sole leader of this production, with season 1 Yamada having such a huge role, and then season 2 Fujita having such a huge role. There was definitely some shaky ground there where we weren't totally sure, how much of the TV series can you really put on the shoulders of Yamada and Fujita, and what would it look like without them? But no, it was great. And seeing Kumiko's first foray as president and everything, it really did set the stage thematically too for what was to come in season 3. Little did we know at the time, but particularly,
I even think the production of the film, it was like,
yeah.
I think it's comfortably the least impressive film production out of the studio.
Chikai,
probably, yeah,
yeah.
ever. I think it didn't look bad by any means. I mean, the standard that KyoAnu has, the floor, you know what I mean? The floor,
right, yeah.
The floor is, they qualify for Champions League with their worst season. But, it wasn't, they didn't get 100 points, at the table with that one. But I think with ensemble contest, I think you kind of saw it looked like the compositing, as they always do, looked incredible. Animation looked incredible. Just there were like a lot of memorable cuts, little cut of Conopy shadow boxing while talking to Kumiko. Like there was just so many of those little moments that, the cut of Kumirei in the hallway, them, the swaying back and forth into each other. So like the production was so fucking good. It was better than Chikai. And it was like what? It was like an hour. I think it was like an hour flat, or like an hour 10 minutes or something.
A little under that, I think. Yeah, it was like right at an hour. Right at an hour. Basically, like slightly longer than a double length.
The Violet Evergarden Fujita movie, which wasn't really a movie, but it aired in theater. It, kind of felt like one of those.
Yeah.
For the canon. And yeah, man, just the production was, everything felt back. Everything felt back.
I remember that the last scene of the OVA in particular, where they're like
on the playground,
the sun setting on the playground and everything, like that scene really gave me, in hindsight now, has given me the vibes of some of these scenes that we've had throughout season 3, where they like really go in on the lighting and the shading and like sort of how they color the hands of the strands of hair to reflect light and everything. That scene kind of had that same vibe. So at least you could see, I could completely see the line of where they were going. In terms of like building this year, continuing to build on the series aesthetic to what it is now, which has been just unbelievably beautiful. It's hard to watch other anime.
I mean, as somebody who is watching other anime this season, it is not the same. And I joke, like I love Girls Band Cry, and I just I think it looks like Code Lyoko, and UFO looks like really good, and just like the quality of, and not to say that it looks bad. It's just I'm sorry, Girls Band. I don't want to upset that one. Girls Band Try Twitter. It's a good show. It's a banger. And that one had episode, I think it was 9. Oh boy, that was a doozy. Jellyfish, another one that's been really good.
I heard that. So I have not been watching Jellyfish or Girls Band Cry, but I have heard on Twitter that they all decided to drop the most like emotionally damaging episodes in the same weekend. Happy Pride.
It was really divorce week. It was Yuri. It was Yuri divorce week on any Twitter. Yeah. So while we're on the topic of ensemble contest, as we transition into talking kind of about season 3, Kumiko has a line one of the conflicts in ensemble contests is they have to pick like their little groups to do to do their little performance at Ancon, and Kumiko's kind of waiting for Reina to like, hey, because Reina's essentially assembling the Avengers, and Kumiko's like, when the fuck, where's my invite? And Reina kind of has that moment by the fountain, or by the sink, where she's like, I knew that you were always gonna say yes to me and only me. And they kind of had this little moment of like, we'll always choose each other. And Kumiko has this kind of like, it wasn't a throwaway line. It was clearly like meant to be important, but in the context of like ensemble contest, it wasn't like that important. And Reina's like, you're the best Euphonium player. Like I was always gonna pick you. I was not gonna pick Kanade. Blah blah blah. Like it's you and me to the end. You're attached by the hip. And Kumiko has this thought of like, I wonder if somebody better than me comes along, if Rena would still pick me. And I suppressed the thought the second I thought of it. And then she kind of like savors that moment, with Rena. And I remember when that happened, you and I, when we watched it, and we were like, bro, that I don't like the sound of that.
This transfer student's about to function. It's not going to go well.
We've been calling her Bin Laden. Our group, we've been calling her
Mama
Omama
Bin Laden.
Mayu is Omama Bin Laden because she's been a fucking terrorist. She's been a terrorist, and she was, she was the North Tower.
She's not trying to. Poor girl.
She's not. She's a sweetheart. But I thought that really transitioned, well into kind of season 3, right? Where you have they kind of have these conflicts of like, okay, like Reina has like these anxieties, and that was kind of brought up in that season, right? In that OVA. Reina has these anxieties of like, hey, like I'm worried that like, we'll drift apart. And that's like partly why I didn't want to ask, because I didn't want the rejection. And Kumiko's like assuring her. And there's like another point in the OVA where Rena's being like really hard on Tsubomu, who's like trying to like, get her part of the marimba, right? And and Kumiko's like, you're not wrong in your approach. Like everything that you're saying is right, but maybe that's not what she needs right now. But you should never stop being you, because that's, and they have this little conversation in the instrument room. And Kumiko kind of like has assured Reina of like who she is kind of throughout their like 2.5 year to now, right? It's like, hey, like I know that, you may not rub everyone the right way, but like I believe in you, and I believe in like the decisions you make and what you do. And that kind of brings us to season 3, where it happened again. I believe it's episode 3, where Rena's having kind of, Rena's being a little dictatory with the first years, really trying to she's just trying to coach them up. You know what I mean? She's trying to coach them up, and they're not taking well. And Kumiko's like, at the end of the episode, she kind of like affirms who Reina is to Reina. And that's just kind of been common. And then we kind of get to episode 9, Ishidate's episode, where the whole thing kind of comes to a head. Mayu gets the Solii spot in episode 8, and in 9, Kumiko's kind of dealing with that fallout, and Reina does not handle that well. It does not handle the mutiny on Taki. It does not handle a lot of things well. And I just thought that like they've kind of eased into this so fucking well. Like the groundwork has been being laid for a while, and you just can't help but respect the hustle.
Yeah, it's such a, and it's interesting because I think this is something that, we fully expected was going to happen all along, especially once they said that they were going to be doing these separate auditions. We were like, okay, which one is Kumiko going to lose? We were mapping out like, okay, so this is clearly where the narrative is going. And we kind of always thought that like the Kansai one definitely, that middle one definitely seems to be like a culprit for where the most like narrative drive could happen.
Well, we thought she might lose the first one.
We thought she might lose both of the first 2 and then only win the nationals one. And then the only thing we just knew she was going to lose one of them. And so there was a lot of pressure on this one, because if Kumiko had actually won this, I was then going to be completely dooming.
The
nationals audition. Yeah,
it was going to be so over.
Yeah. But, in thinking about that, like I've spent most of the time leading up to this episode thinking about the impact that it would have on Kumiko herself. But I hadn't considered as much the opportunity for conflict and growth that it would actually have with Reina. And I think that this episode in particular, like it's such an interesting place that she's at, where she's been pushing so hard, wanting to make to do the soli with Kumiko at nationals, while obviously Taki is her obsession. And so now she's kind of like pit between Taki and Kumiko in a way that has been fascinating. And like you said, does not handle it extremely well.
Well, the thing that's interesting about kind of her relationship with Taki is that like, and again, this was also foreshadowed. Like Kumiko has this conversation with Mirei I believe it's episode 5. It's the first audition episode,
Mm-hmm.
and or the episode directly following the audition. And Mide is like, hey, I don't think Suzume deserved that over Satsuki. And Kumiko's like, well, we just gotta we gotta trust like Taki. Like, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but like he has his reasons and we gotta like trust the process. She's
Yeah.
like, and Mide tells her like, not everyone fucks with him like you guys fuck with him. Like y'all
Yeah.
that have been with him for 3 years, you guys have a relationship and trust with him that we don't. And I think it's good. That's good for a couple of reasons. Taki has just notably not been good at handling people and personalities. I think his musical judgment is airtight. And I think ultimately, like, his decisions on the music are going to be always right, but he doesn't kind of handle the social aspect of it. Like, he was right by, kind of giving Reina the solo over Cowdy. And I'm sure that we're going to learn soon what his reasoning was to give
Mm-hmm.
the how do you call it? I call it Soli. What do you call it?
Solely.
Soli. The Soli to Mayu, as well as kind of Susume getting that pick, and then the recent development of the fourth tuba over the third
Mm-hmm.
Euphonium player, leaving poor Conopy
Poor guy.
out there to dry. And so like Rena, at the end of, I think that's episode 6, they're walking out, and Rena's like, well, we're gonna make nationals because we're the goats and we have Taki. And Kumiko kind of pauses and she's like, huh. And Reina's like, are you coming or what? And it was kind of like this like small moment of Kumiko kind of like, taking note of that. And then that's also kind of been festering for a while, right? Like this, like these second and first years don't fuck with Taki the way that the third years do, because they've
Yeah.
kind of had, and I've told, like, we've talked about this. Like, I think one of the cool things about UFO this season is like Kitauji has this, they have this culture that they're building, right? They have like
Mm-hmm.
this heritage, right, from the first years to the following, right? And then everybody, you need buy-in and selflessness and like a lack of ego, yet also a harnessing of that ego to like fight for your spot. And they have like all these like things that almost like run counter to each other to kind of create this hyper competitive, really interesting kind of dynamic between like these students cannibalizing each other, for their kind
Yeah.
of opportunities at performance, to an instructor who by all means is a good man, but does not have the trust of his students, and his decisions can appear callous. And kind of that all comes to a head in episode 9. And I think that kind of takes from season 1 and kind of carries that over from that Yuko Cowdy Reina conflict to just him just being, I mean, Taki's just a dickhead dude in season 1.
As well as from Chikai too, with Kanade and Natsuki, and
Yes.
sort of their conflict with Kumiko too.
Yeah.
No, I think that season 3 has gone to such great lengths to really establish how Kitoji operates. It's a meritocracy where whoever is best plays, whoever's best wins. But what does it mean to be best? What does it mean to be better? And that's really been what's called into question. And to Reina's point that she, in the argument at the end of episode 9 here, that as soon as people lose faith in the merit, as soon as people lose faith in who and what are the criteria for determining who's best to get those positions, then the foundation of it all completely crumbles. Now Reina points that out and is like, well, that's why we just have to blindly follow Taki. So I think she's close to the truth, but
she's not quite there.
She's not quite there yet. She's got her own little baggage to work with. But it's fascinating. The band politics have never been more interesting from that lens. And then you add in such layered character depth on top of it. The thing I loved about this episode was just how we sort of bounce between all the different characters, getting their take, their reaction, their perspective on Kumiko losing the audition and why and what it means and what they think of Kitauji's sort of ethos, right? And every single one of their responses to it is just so perfectly in tune with the character that's been established throughout the series and the arcs that they've gone through, the beliefs and ideals that they have, whether it's Hazuki saying that she believes in whatever Taki said because that's what motivated her. Like it must be the fact that Mayu was better, because failing to do so is what pushed her to the place that she's at now. On the other hand, you have Midori, who's like, she was the one who the class traitor in season one, who did not stand up for Dana, and like didn't want to rock the boat, and was thinking of more of that sort of like
the vibes,
the psychology of it with the band, not wanting to mess, thinking of the human element to it, right? Not necessarily just the performance. And here I think that her argument honestly carries even more weight than it did back then, because Reina was just like flagrantly better than Kaori at the time. But as has been pointed out here, like the difference between Kumiko and Mayu is splitting hairs at best, at least as far as we know. But definitely, like, there's some criteria in there that we haven't heard. The cliffhanger at the end of this episode was something, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll see what Taki's reasoning is where Kumiko confronts him. But I like what you said, because like everybody's kind of own experience of kind of like, I thought Midori's was incredibly consistent with kind of what she had kind of said, because her priority with season one was like, yeah, like Rena may be better, but like, is that like really what's best for the vibe? And like, we're gonna need like morale and stuff to compete. And then like, same.
I mean,
same,
if it destroys
holds the same position.
And if it completely destroys the vibe across the band, that will affect their performance, and therefore they'll be worse. So like maybe this individual player is better, but it's not about, it is about the collective. And so it is an interesting argument that she makes, and I think it does carry a lot of weight. But it's the thing with this episode that I love so much is that nobody's exactly right or wrong. That's not what this is about. It's seeing their perspectives and what that says about them as characters and what they believe. But also just that pretty much all of them are making good points, even if they're saying opposite things. I like that you brought up the scene with Tsubame and the ensemble contest OVA, because when her conversation with Mayu in this episode, when they're like messing with the fireworks and stuff, she sort of says something similar to what Hazuki says, but she's reassured by the fact that Taki clearly isn't playing favorites. And she specifically says he's choosing people based on how they sound. And that right there is like exactly the motivation she took from that OVA, so it's just pulling it's completely in tune with its own characters, and the writing is so airtight with each one of them that it's beautiful to see a drama come together like this. It really is.
The big question I'm gonna have is with Reina, because I think Reina's kind of in this weird spot where I think, and there are like kind of moments where you can see that she's upset with the way Kumiko is handling this. Like, I think that there's a conversation during the fireworks before they're interrupted by the students questioning her god Taki in the forest, and they're like, Kanade should have, made it. They should have kept 3 tubas, right? And that won't get shut. But she's like, she asked Kumiko asked her like, why do you think I didn't get it? And then Kumiko just kind of plays it off like, Dana, I'm sorry, like I'll get it next time. You know what I mean? It's like kind of like smiles and plays it off. Doesn't have like that, almost like she was in season one. Like, oh, like clearly she's hurting, but she has this like presidential mask on that, like, okay, like I can't be too upset. I can't like say how I feel. And then they have the conversation between the cabinet, her, Reina and Shuichi, where again, like she's like, well, Reina's right. And like Reina looked angry. Like you get that cut to her, and she was not happy. And I think that she's upset that there's like not a faith in their instructor that she holds. We can joke about like kind of a lot of things, but there's so many things to play. Like like she obviously like the narrative has given her like these romantic feelings for him, and also like B, like she has like this really high opinion of his music mind. Like she respects him as a musician, like more than anything in the story. She respects his decisions as a musician, and that is ultimately like her main motivator for anything. She wants to be a pro, she wants to be the GOAT, and that colors every decision. So then she's like between like, I care about, she obviously like has this like really deep bond with Kumiko that she's horrified of losing, and she's willing to throw it away on that bridge for not just her going against what Reina believes to be like the thing that will get them gold at nationals, But also, I think that Rena's upset that Kumiko is not like, I'm gonna fucking fight. I'm gonna bleed, god damn it. I'm gonna do whatever, scratch and claw, do whatever it takes to get that back. Like she's like Emiya Archer in fucking Heaven's Feel. Like, can you keep up with me? You know what I mean? And she wants Shiro to run through and break. Like that's what she's doing. And Kumiko's just kind of like giving a bunch of non-answers, and she's kind of like being like Mayu, right? Where Mayu has like that scene at the pool, and she's telling Kumiko like, I don't have like a personality. I just do what other people say. And then like, you know, Yubame comes with the sodas, and she's like, which do you like? You know, and then it cuts.
It feels like something how Kumiko would have reacted, 3 years ago.
Yes. So then she's like, oh, you're right, Reina. Oh, I'm sorry. Like all these like little things.
Yeah.
It's not like she's almost like regressed a little bit. Kind of reminds me of Origairu season 3, where Yukino kind of like shells back before she can kind of go back forward, right? Like she kind of reverts back to like this girl who like is like seeking help instead of like kind of doing shit for herself. And I think Kumiko's kind of reverting. This is kind of shaking her, and she's reverting back. And Rena's like, this is not the person that was like literally bleeding for this shit. Like, you know, where's the girl that was running across the bridge? Where's the girl that was like practicing in the heat until like gave it her all? And I think that she wants her to like have that drive, because that's like the person that like she's close to, the person that she believes in. And I think that she's kind of willing to throw that all away, because she's like, you're not the person that you've been, that I respect. And you're all, and like, you're going against like our chance at winning. And I think that that's an interesting component to that. But Jack, what I want to talk about is, okay, you can go ahead, and then we'll kind of get to the other part of Reina that I wanted to.
Yeah, I was just going to say that like throughout this episode, Kumiko's constantly putting on airs and putting up a mask with people. And, that first scene between Kumiko and Reina at the camp after everything, Reina's the one who has to remind her that they still have the Nationals audition potentially, and that Kumiko just seems kind of resigned to it. But when they first, at the start of the scene, Reina says that despite the outcome, she thinks this is for the best, because she believes in Taki's decision-making. But when she says that, you do get a cut to Kumiko's face, kind of, she has her head in her hands, and you just like, you see the, like her real feeling, right? It's an absolutely just like gut-wrenching face that she's making. You know, you can see the pain written all over her face at hearing Reina say that, but also just at her own failure. And then immediately when she looks up to talk to Reina, it's back to the sort of like kind of nonchalant, like wishy-washy attitude. And it's, she tries to maintain that mask with Mayu, and Mayu comes up behind her, and she takes that deep breath, like as soon as Mayu comes.
A lot of deep breaths this episode.
Gotta hand it to Moyo. Oh my God, what an incredible performance she had in this episode. Just like the like cracks in her voice, like when you could tell that mask was about to completely shatter for Kumiko. But I think that's part of it with Reina, is that she picks up on the fact that Kumiko is putting on that mask for her. That scene with her and Shuichi, the three of them, I mean, when she just kind of meekly says that, I think you're right too, Reina.
Yeah.
Then she just like gives her this, gives her a nasty look and storms off. Because she
Which,
can
by
tell
the way, that cut when she stormed off of her hair fluttering, call back to episode 11 of season 1, where after the confession of love scene, Reina has this meekness to her of like, oh, maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe like I shouldn't do this. And Kumiko reassures her. She kind of turns that hair flip. It's the same shot. And also they reuse that when Kumiko first encounters Mayu at the roof of the school. So this is like the third time that they've used the shot. And I thought that was kind of an interesting callback.
No, for sure. Especially given the different context
now
that it came out here.
Flipped it upside down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, and so I think for Kumiko, that's a big part of the rest of her arc going forward this season is, like you said, I think she's regressed in the sense that I don't. It's not that I don't think she cares. It's just that she's sort of protecting herself, right, by putting up these walls.
Because like she's not just she's not just a club member. Like she's the president, and like there's two people that are at odds with each other in Kumiko. There's a Kumiko that has to be the president, that has to make everybody feel at ease, and like there is some sort of leadership. And then there's her that's frustrated and upset. And those two people are at odds because one of them wants to be upset and angry, maybe even petulant, and the other one has to kind of put on a face, which is why I like that one shot in episode 9 that Ishidate used, where like half of Kumiko's face is off screen and then the other half is on screen, where she's telling Shuichi that I'm satisfied with that, right? And I put it up here that you can kind of see like the Kumiko that is on screen is the president, but that's part of her that's off screen is the part that's not satisfied. It's a half truth.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing about kind of this Reina Kumiko dynamic is like and Taki is, I don't know if Takeda, the writer for the Tiny Euphonium series, I don't know, Jack, if she's gonna like, they have to address Reina's weird relationship with Taki, or weird idolization. And I get worried because they can go about this a couple ways. And I think this is like the junction of where it's like, okay, like rubber's hitting the fucking road right now. Are we gonna like end this shit perfectly or not? And I think some of that's gonna fall on like how Reina and Taki is dealt with, because episode First Love Trumpet in season 2 did not handle, which was anime original content, that did not handle the Reina Taki thing well. She very kind of psychotically goes to Taki's wife's grave. She's
exactly normal behavior.
Totally normal behavior. Drags Kumiko there. My favorite part of that episode is Kumiko looking at her like, Reina, what the fuck? You know, like they're up and Reina's like going to pray at this woman's grave, and Kumiko's like, what are we doing? And
I support you.
I support you. I don't know if like they're gonna actually kind of unpack her relationship, or like the way, not her relationship, her feelings toward him, or if they're just gonna kind of address the worship she has for him. And I think that those are two different things. I think that the worship for her comes from her feelings, you know, of idolization and romantic desire, but I don't think it's all that. And I think that ultimately what I think they're gonna do is they're gonna unpack kind of the way that she idolizes him, and they're just gonna kind of extrapolate that to like her getting over her crush, and that's gonna be like okay, I guess, but it's not gonna be like as satisfying as I would like.
No, I mean, I think if Taki had heard what Reina was saying to Kumiko about, like, you know, we have to, you know, we must follow his decisions and instruction, absolutely, like, and everything she was saying,
he'd hate it.
He himself would be like, that's not true. In fact, like
he tells Kumiko like, I'm not taking you to nationals. You are going to nationals.
Right. Like that is something that Reina doesn't understand, or like, you know, Reina would see the opposite. She would see, she sees it as Taki being the one taking them.
Reina thinks Jose Mourinho's the one winning, not, you know, the players on the pitch.
Taki's more of a
Jurgen Klopp. You're right.
I was gonna say Pep, but
no, because Pep wins too much.
Touche.
Can't be Pep.
I don't like where this is headed then.
No, they're gonna get their one. They're gonna get their one.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, no, exactly. So I hope that it does kind of like dive into that a little bit with Reina, and it's, you know, part of it is like, it's almost, if Reina was privy to some of these conversations that Kumiko has had with Taki, it'd be very interesting, right? But I think that's kind of the big thing that's you know, with her character, that she's gonna have to get over that going forward, you know, and growing as a person and becoming a pro, right? That idolization is not coming from a place that's internally motivated, right?
It's been like the thing in the series that has bothered me the most pretty consistently is like the way that they've handled that, and even her growth has just been, you know, like for most of the season, we've talked about it, like, oh, look, she was normal about that interaction with her teacher.
Yeah.
And that's not, they never addressed it. They just kind of pushed it aside. They brought it back. And I think that this is a chance for them to do something with it that I will hold my breath on, because I just don't think Takeda has guts.
Yeah, I mean, she's such a driven person. I think there's so much potential there with what they could do. But we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Because that's like the big, right. So I think the main conflicts that we were going to have to get to were going to be, this there's three things. I think it's the Mayu intrusion in Kumiko's life and how that's going to affect her and the band. Two is this idea of Kumiko and Reina and their future and kind of like their relationship going forward. And that's why I think also, and we had talked about this a lot, that I felt that this season they were attached by the hip in a way that they had never been. It was like literally every fucking episode we were getting cute Kumirei scene after cute Kumirei scene, and we, the shippers, were we were living life, ignoring all the red flags. But I do think that part of that was like when they rip them apart, it's going to be felt. And Taki has that line. It's like, where's Kosaka? And Kumiko like has that snide remark of like, well, we're not always together. And it's like, you kind of are. Yeah, you kind of are. Like your first thought is like, I guess
the mere fact he's asking this question would say otherwise. Yeah.
The fucking teacher, your instructor, dog. Like the one, you know what I mean? You go every morning and get the key. And so I obviously like a very deliberate choice of like they're just together all the time. And now they've ripped them apart. So that's like the other conflict. And then the next one is going to be Kumiko's future, which in your YouTube shorts that you've done all season, you've been doing a short per episode. You've kind of highlighted that you think that, okay, like we're headed toward Kumiko music teacher arc. And I think those are like the three main conflicts that season 3 was going to have. The Mayu one kind of, okay, the river card came that she lost the audition. Osama bin Laden, struck the tower. And now, we're dealing with that fallout. The Kumirei stuff just had its big pivotal turn, and her future stuff, I'm sure, going to get, that's probably an episode 12, 13 kind of solution. I don't think we're going to get to that before the end of nationals, but those are kind of, I feel like all the cards are on the table.
Yeah. Well, and it's all coming together in a way that all these threads are so intertwined. I think that kind of what we talked about earlier with Kumiko, that's sort of the one thing that she still has to learn as a leader is how to navigate, her own personal feelings of frustration that she has, while also being the sort of like the rock for the people that look up to her to latch onto and that she can rely on. And I think that the scene with her and Taki earlier, where Taki says that he wanted to be that he wanted to be somebody that people could rely on, but that he still is like, I don't feel any different than I ever was. I still feel, as much, and adults in general still feel like a kid with more responsibility. Right. And I think that sort of like the Taki conflict coming along with, Kumiko's growth as a leader, is perfectly setting up into that. And then you also have, the fact that like how that like Kumiko is kind of telling Reina on the bridge, right, that like Reina's a little dismissive of all the other band members. I shouldn't say a little dismissive. She's completely dismissive.
She told those hoes that they're not
she
trying.
Called them all whiners and losers. Yeah.
She's the goat for that. Bro, she's the goat for that.
So she's like, yeah, okay. All these people just need to get over it. But Kumiko, her response to Reina is that like, is essentially, I can't dismiss their concerns, like, and it's sort of the like, it follows from everything she said to the band members throughout the season, whether it was Sally or Motomu. She said that like, bring your issues to me, bring your concern. I'll be that person that you can confide in and you can talk to. Tell me anything, and I'll, like, we'll see. We'll try to work through it. So like she's positioned herself as that person, and now she finds herself at the center of everyone's concern and everyone's issue. So just the way that, all three of those threads that you're talking about have all kind of connected through here. It definitely is setting up for a peak fiction finish.
It was kind of like, okay, like the season starts and we're waiting for the Mayu. We're waiting for the Mayu ball to drop, right? So she's presented as like this incredibly intrusive figure, and it's like pretty uncomfortable. I think that like she's a very kind girl who wants to fit in, and her presence is uncomfortable, and I think unsettling. I think is probably a better word than uncomfortable. It's like it's unsettling, and like she's, it just makes every scene have this. It feels like everything's on a little bit of ice, right? from the first note that you hear in the distance, right? That Rena also reassures Kumiko, she's good, but you're better. To the meeting on the roof, to the OP, which I tweeted about when it came out, when the shots of Kumiko and Rena kind of, and if you look at the bottom of the screen on the bottom left, we kind of took the little moment where they're both kind of crying, facing in opposite directions. And what breaks that scene is Mayu in Kumiko's spot. It's Mayu
Yep.
on Kumiko's side of the screen, because it's Reina's on the left, Kumiko's on the right. Mayu comes on the right of the screen where Kumiko is in her spot. It's kind of like, okay, like she's what's gonna come between them with the Soli. And it's been pretty brilliant because she, Jack, it reminds me a little bit of Liz and the Bluebird, where I had a video where I talked about how there are no bad guys in Liz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nozomi and Mizore are both hurting in their own ways. Mizore is like this incredibly sad, down bad girl who's like horrified of losing the person who means the universe to her. And Nozomi is like suffocated by Mizore's excellence. And it's like this like agonizing duet that they have this whole film. And I think that there's like a lot of that kind of in play, right now, where like there are no bad guys, right? Like Mayu wants friends and to fit in and to be nice.
This poor girl is tortured in the sense that all she wants to do is just like not step on anyone's toes and just be a part of their friend
She
group
can't help being a terrorist.
She can't, and she's practically begged at times that like, I don't, like, this is the last thing I want. Everything that happened in this episode, Mayu repeatedly said, this is the last thing I want.
It was like a sick, self-fulfilling prophecy.
It was, exactly. And Kumiko kept reassuring her, because Kumiko had to reassure her, because this is the ethos that she has built the club that she leads on.
This is the heritage.
Yeah, exactly. And she can't back out now that there's personal stakes for her, right? So she has to tell Mayu, like, absolutely, I want you to perform to the best of your ability. And Mayu, listening to that, then therefore can't help but cause the situation that's happened. It's tragic in a way, but that's also part of what makes it so nuanced.
And like, I think like even in her moments of kindness, like she goes to Kumiko like to apologize. Kumiko like has these small like bursts of anger. And she's like, just like kind of what you said, she's like, play to the best of your abilities. That's all. Like, and then she like shuts a con by the vending machines. And then Mayu's chasing her out of the practice room at the camp. And Kumiko has this fit, like, stop doing that. Like, stop saying that. Just like, take your win and move on. It's like, listen, I play Melee. I play Super Smash Brothers Melee. I compete. And it's like you lose at the local and the guy comes up to you to try to like apologize. And you're like, leave me alone. It's
the worst thing that someone could say to you in that point. You'd rather somebody just come and straight up gloat in your face.
GG's, fist bump. Yeah. I gotta get in the lab. I don't need you fucking following me around the venue. Like, because you're just and that's Mayu, like, because she's like, oh, I gotta like fix this. But there's nothing to fix. Like, you just take your win. Like the fucking, the Satsuki doesn't have to go to Kanade and be like, hey, sorry, bro. You know what I mean? That's not what happened. And I think Mayu is a little bit like overdoing it, which is making it worse.
Right. And that's where she needs to grow.
Yeah. She just needs to accept, like, almost to take responsibility for her talent.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a great way of putting it, and that's what everyone else would want to see of her. And I will say, so I think that looking ahead specifically with what exactly is sort of the difference between the two of them, the read that I've picked up on it, and maybe this is a prediction of where I think Taki's reasoning is going, but maybe not. But you get the sense throughout this season that the main difference between them is that Mayu believes she's better and Kumiko does not believe that she's better than Mayu. Like every time that comes up, Reina is the one more than once who hears Mayu's playing and tells her, oh, but you're better than her. Kumiko never says that. In fact, when Kumiko hears Mayu, she thinks of Asuka, who Kumiko definitely saw, looked up
idolizes,
to, right? Who Kumiko idolized. And then Kumiko thinks of Asuka again when she sees her for the first time and sees the silver euphonium and everything. And I think that, if we go back to what Taki told Kumiko about why he chose Suzume over Satsuki for the Kyoto competition, he says that, like while Satsuki is more consistent and is able to just like, play the notes as expected, Suzume during the more difficult parts, she's louder. Her sound carries more and has more behind it, right? And so even if Satsuki offers more, across across the spectrum of the performance, like when you're part of a collective, like that ability to shine, to be special, right, is what stands out, and that's why he went with Suzume. And I think that similar logic is probably playing in with Kumiko and Mayu here, where that level of self-belief seems to kind of be a difference separating the two of them, because it doesn't really sound like, as far as their technical quality, it certainly doesn't seem like there's much separating them. And just given Kumiko's reaction to it and everything, I think that that's really played out. I mean, in the way that Mayu has repeatedly just been like, if you go back to episode 8 when Kumiko blows up at her, like, stop saying that about, like, do you think that, do you think that you say that as if it's a given that you're going to win if you take it seriously? It's like every time Mayu has said like, oh, well, like I don't want the soli, so I just won't even try if you want to have it. It's just every time Mayu says that is like a little chisel away at Kumiko. And I think part of the reason
you think you're better than me?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and part of the reason I think it hurts Kumiko is probably
you making
because
fun of me.
There's a part of Kumiko that believes that that's true herself.
And I think that's what she's gonna have to kind of overcome it, and kind of, to be honest with you, she got to find that dog in her again. She has to rediscover.
That's basically what we're saying.
Which in the first audition, she had that. She's like, I'm gonna claim this. I'm claiming my rightful spot, my soul, my fucking part, my fucking woman. You won't take that from me, god damn it. And what I'm waiting for, Jack, is for the moment when Kumiko has to see and hear Reina and Mayu practice. And I hope to God it's in her spot, because it's going to be like, you took my fucking part, you took my friends, you took my spot, you took my goddamn woman too. Like, that's what I need to happen.
For sure. No, we need, whether it's, I don't care if it's Kansai itself, which I doubt, or if it's just a practice, like with the group, or if it's just a practice of just Kumiko, Reina and Mayu, like just the two of them. And Kumiko,
I think that's what it's going to be.
Something we need that moment where Kumiko has to hear that, and
Kanade has to make a snide remark, because they're going to be in like the club room or something. Like Kanade has to make the remark or something, like some snide ass comment.
Yeah. I sure think that, given where things ended in this episode and how, Kumiko and Reina are in Splitsville right now, I for sure could see Reina pulling Mayu aside to specifically practice with her at the school, like in Kumiko and Reina's spot where they practiced earlier.
Because Mayu likes that spot because it's shady.
Exactly.
Said so.
That's where Kumiko first found her.
Kanade walking by, like I think of the scene in Liz and the Bluebird when Kumirei are playing the perfect analog, where Kumirei are playing the third movement solo. Mm-hmm. And you have the scene where Yuko, Natsuki, and Nozomi kind of look out the window, and Nozomi looked heartbroken, like, damn, why don't we sound like that? And it's like fucking amazing scene of Nozomi, of Misore opening the window. The shot of this bird streaks by through the reflection. She's listening to this, looking as angry as I've seen her in the story, and then like very gently closing the window of like, I can't believe I had to like subject myself to that, because like I don't sound that way with Nozomi, and that's not fair. And I think we might get something like that with Kumirei, and then Kanade walking by being like, you gonna fucking take that? You gonna fucking take that? Like, some shit like that. That'd be peak Conopy. Peak Conopy.
I love her. She's my goat.
I love her. She's been like top 5 for me, man. I think that she is a top 5 UFO character for me.
I mean, her scene in this episode was one of the best too, with Kumiko. Just that the banter that Kumiko and Kanade have is up there amongst like best character dynamics in the show.
It's so good. And because like there's like she genuinely loves Conopy a lot, and like I know that like Conopy drives her fucking crazy, but like even then like she kind of laughs and is like, man, I love you, kid,
Yeah.
type stuff. And Conopy is like, she's such a good person. She wants to appear like a bitch, but she's not. She's just good. She's just a good person who really cares about people, and I love that. I just think it's so. I just think she's just so good. I like that. I want to see what they do with her as well, because I think that her losing her part, I think, kind of gives her room to like, what are you gonna do about? What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what is your response to, because she, I didn't expect that, by the way, and they had kind of
Yeah.
like foreshadowed the fourth tuba, but I to keep with the Osama bin Laden bit, she was the first tower and then Kumiko was the second. Like I did not expect I did not expect her to fucking
There's
lose
like
her part
15
like that.
9/11s.
Yeah, 15 9/11. Because she's good and we know
Yeah.
her to be a good Euphonium player. It's not like Natsuki in season 1 where like Natsuki self-admits like, yeah, man, I practiced one part and when Taki asked me to play another, I was like, well, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We gotta get asked about it.
Kanade is a good Euphonium player who
Right.
Kumiko felt threatened by in year 2.
Yeah.
So it's like she's not a bozo. It's just that competitive.
Yeah, I think if anything with Kanade, like if anyone could have a scene with Kumiko where she's just like, I can't believe, you just seem resigned to this. It would be mean a lot for Kanade to be the one to say something like that to her.
Because it can't be Reina anymore.
Right. No. And honestly, nor do I think it should be. Like, I think it makes more sense if whether it's Kanade or whether it's just completely internally motivated.
It's gonna be Kanade, internally motivated, Hazuki, or probably Shuichi. I guess I
But
don't really.
I gotta hand it to Shuichi in this episode, by the way.
He was good.
He was good. Yeah.
He's been good
His whole clap back to Reina, by the way, about like,
Yeah.
well, we got to think about the next year too. I was like, you gotta hand it to him. He's thinking about he wants to keep the legacy going on. Reina's like, I don't give a shit what happens to this band after I'm gone.
Baby.
I want gold.
I love Reina because she's fucking deranged. She's peak yonder. She's fucking deranged, bro.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like all season she's been like so good and sweet, and then the fucking that crazy's still in her. I do think it's funny that I see people like on the timeline on Twitter like fucking dragging her for filth and like and I was like, guys, A, she's the GOAT. B, she's a troubled woman. She's a troubled girl. Cut her some slack. She's a little crazy. And that's I think when people are like kind of like shitting on Reina, I think that kind of like misses the point of like this season of UFO a lot, because it's like we said at the top, Kumiko is like constantly like affirming to Reina like the way you are is okay. And like you don't have to explain to anybody or change for anybody because you're special. And the line that I think of a lot is when Kumiko says Kitauji isn't Kitauji without everybody. And a big part of that is Reina, like this person who like constantly wants excellence, and she has her issues. Like we've gone through so many people's issues. We've gone through Kumiko kind of fighting this opaqueness that she had once shed. Talk about Mayu kind of overcorrecting for her kindness. We talked about Taki and kind of his lack of understanding of like personal dynamics. Like everybody has their flaw, right? Like Reina is neither infallible or like just a piece of shit who has nothing redeeming about her. Like she's a really good friend. She's a good person. She loves Kumiko dearly, and she would never do that to somebody she didn't care about. And that's why Kumiko was so devastated. I mean, like literally, the translation, Mamiko is like, "You look devastated," and Kumiko looks in the reflection. She's like, "Shit, I do."
Yeah.
And that's why like this season has been, I think, arguably the best content that the show's had, because it's like we've been with a lot of these characters for a long time. We're very familiar with kind of their flaws, and they're kind of just put on blast. And it's like we're really inspecting and unpacking all these characters at their best and at their worst. Because I think this season has had Reina, early on too, by the way, like she had that conflict with the first years, but like you even see like she doesn't feel good about kind of the whiplash mentality that she's having, and she overcomes and she goes to the other Kohai and it's like, hey, you were awesome at Sunfest, and like these like young students like really look up to her because of how like good of a musician she is and how like good of a leader she is. It's the way that she carries her. Kumiko says like, "You're better than Asuka." You know what like you got to do for Kumiko to say that?
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah, I just don't like everybody putting Reina on blast because like I think that like that's kind of missing the point of like everybody needs to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, with Reina, I think too you have to. There's how do I want to put this?
How do I word this?
Yeah. No, I think that like you have to like I kind of caught a vibe from her that I don't know how much she is lashing out at Kumiko as she is trying to like reinforce her own conviction. That was kind of like a feeling like I got, particularly with that scene that we talked about earlier with her and Kumiko and Shuichi, where like I don't know, I just there seemed to be a glimpse of the fact that like Reina was trying, Reina all season has been saying that like she thinks Kumiko's better, right? As soon as Taki says that Mayu's better, well, I guess that must be right. She doesn't even like what she specifically the line that she says to Kumiko is that like, Kumiko asks her, "What do you think of the decision, of the result?" And she says that, "Well, I can't say because I didn't hear the audition, but that's what Taki said." It's her own belief between the difference in the difference between the two of them does not align with the decision that Taki made, and I think that might have sort of put a little crack in that armor of hers that she has when it comes to Taki.
I think that a lot of the season is kind of like dispelling or challenging kind of these really firmly held beliefs. I think Kumiko kind of having to face her old self in Mayu, kind of Rena's unwavered belief in Taki, like all these things kind of just are at play this season. And I think you can only do that with the show that has been as long running as UFO. Like I think like we're approaching, the first 2 seasons, I believe it's 26 episodes plus 2 films, an hour-long OVA, and now another 13 episode. Seems like there's a lot of UFO, right? And there's a lot of history to kind of draw and to build from. It's just like I think pretty unique, especially nowadays. I think we get a lot of sequels, but not a lot of things to completion, like the way, especially something as kind of the production value at UFO is incredible, and something as kind of tact and beautiful as it. So it's been interesting. One of the last things I want to get to before we kind of wrap up and kind of say how we feel like this is going to go. I struggle to place Shuichi's kind of role in the story, and obviously like we've gone about 50 some odd minutes and have not talked a single thing about pairing and Endgame because it's really annoying discourse and it's not particularly interesting for the narrative because that's not what we like about UFO.
To be honest, we've spent as much time on it as the narrative has.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're but ultimately like what are they gonna I don't really know if he's gonna get a bigger role in how many episodes we have left. 4. Because like we're running out of time to do something interesting with him, and maybe he's just a support character and doesn't do anything. But I think I don't really see the point of what he's doing. I think he's been good, right? Like I've liked like kind of like his role as kind of like a friend. I think he's been really good in the way that he stuck up for Kumiko, and I've liked their moments. I like the one moment when she thanked him for inviting Motomo to the festival, and they like it was like the like genuine appreciation for each other and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't really see where they're going with his character, and obviously that has other implications down the line if they do nothing with it.
He's basically been a background character in season 3. I mean, there's been multiple entire episodes where he's not been on screen or had an on-screen line. And
only the fucking Notebook.
Yeah, I was about to say, except for his disembodied voice in the Notebook. And that being said, when he's been a good background, like he's been good in that capacity in the sense that like when called upon in the story, like I think he has been like you said, he's a good friend to Kumiko. He's had moments where I've appreciated his presence in the story. As far as like something more with him, I think it is a little difficult because some of these like some of these potential scenes we're talking about imagining, like if if those words were coming from Shuichi, it wouldn't have as much of an impact, I don't think, as it would from like Kanade, for instance, because that foundation of that relationship between Kumiko and Kanade is there and has built to a moment like that. They have that between them. I think with Shuichi, at this point, anything would feel a little tacked on. It might be too late in the game.
A little Jover for that one.
Yeah. At least within the context of talking about like doing anything more than when they've already done. Because like I said, I think he's been good in the capacity that he's been there.
I do think that he'll have a role in the mending offenses between Kumiko and Reina. I think ultimately, like, she's gonna have nobody to turn to, which is funny because it's like Hazuki and Midori are her friends, but like she never relies on them for anything personal.
Well, yeah, it's true. And with him being the third executive, though, I mean, it 100% makes perfect sense for him to be
and her longest friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody who knows her like family stuff as well, like somebody who she's close to and stuff. So I see him.
He knows her the best next to Reina.
Yeah, distantly, but
I didn't say it was close second.
I do think that he'll have a conversation with Reina, and I think he'll get her back for the conversation earlier in
two earlier in the season. Yep.
I think he'll get her back and be like, hey, like, you're doing the thing you told me not to do. You got to fucking step up. I think he'll do it when it gets bad, when it gets worse. Well, I don't even know, Jack, what the fuck? Like, they're going to have to interact because they're the drum major and the president. And maybe they only interact through the notebook. But now the notebook would be two people that Reina doesn't want to speak to in Shu and Kumiko, which is uproariously funny.
Yeah.
I tweeted, I was like, we could have Reina calling her Omae-san next week, which I gotta be honest with you, I'm fucking rooting for that.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for the frostiest shit imaginable.
No, for sure. I think that the makeup between them happens either next week or the week after.
No, we gotta like it has to be 11. I don't think it can be 10. I think they need to sit in this shit for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot of self-reflection, I think, that needs to happen next week. Particularly after the scene, whatever comes of the conversation between Kumiko and Taki, that's gonna, speak volumes. But then because the makeup could be something that I see more in after Kansai, more in conjunction with the Nationals auditions itself. Go ahead.
No, you finish.
No, is that like, I think we really like the fact like Mayu playing the Soli really hits the hardest if they perform at Kansai while Kumiko and Reina are still on the fritz. Like, that has to happen. I don't think Kansai's not happening before the end of next week's episode. In reality, it probably happens like between next week's episode and the one after that. I doubt that we're seeing like actually seeing it on screen.
I think Ep 10 ends with them at Kansai.
Yeah.
Or Ep 11 opens with them at Kansai.
Yeah.
Because I think ultimately, like, they have next episode, they have to go the Nationals auditions. They need an epilogue episode. So epilogue episode and audition, that's 2. So that's 2 of the 4. We have next week, whatever next week is going to be, which, by the way, Asuka's voice actress is credited next episode, whatever that means.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that on the timeline today that was dropped. So
I have been 100% confident that obviously Asuka was going to make a cameo, but that whatever cameo Asuka made would be a very big scene. Like,
why I think it'd be Kansai.
Yeah, it could.
I think Kansai's next week. I think Kansai's next week, and there's some sort of interaction with Asuka.
with
The
Asuka.
following week,
I don't think we see the performance at Kansai. That we'll just skip that. But definitely
they don't
it could
have
see
the
there
time
being
for that.
no,
music
they don't
piece.
have the well, they don't have the time and like 90% of the performance would just be the same thing. You know, the only thing that would really, you know, narratively speaking, the only thing that we would really like be interested in seeing would be the Soli performance. But I just doubt that they would
fucking piece. God damn it.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know what it sounds like except for the first 30 seconds.
That's been one of the annoying parts of this season, where it was like in season 1, we know what that piece sounds like because we kept hearing them play it all the time, and we've heard maybe 2 seconds at a time.
You know, we did also spend, you know, 26 episodes with that piece. As opposed to these 13.
Well, even in Liz,
26 episodes and 2 performances, whereas this we're just going to get literally half that because 13 and 1 performance.
And Liz, they play that solo part a lot, so I mean we get familiar with that. This has been kind of the music pieces have been on the back burner. I mean, we didn't get a Sunfest performance, which I imagine we'll get in some sort of recap movie. That's usually what they do. They add either the free piece or they add another kind of performance in those. But you know, we've heard the Solai. Kumiko and Reina played it at Agata Matsuri.
Yep.
We had the piece between
we get the opening. We got the opening sequence in episode 2 or 3.
Yes,
2, I think.
The clarinet. Which the rookie has to win that part, I think, at the end too, because the third year won it. That was another kind of thing that they kind of tucked under. Sally lost. Heard the solo that she got. So that wasn't the only kind of switch the schmicks in the solo. So
a lot of moving parts.
But kind of something that I've talked about on Twitter before is like season 1 adapted a novel with 13 episodes. Season 2 adapted 2 novels in its 13 episodes. And season 2 was a lot snappier, a lot quicker. They had 1 performance as opposed to 2 in season 1, which was Sunfest and the Kyoto competition. In season 2, they only had Kansai, which was, again, a remarkable 6 minutes of animation that really nothing like it. And then in this season, they're adapting another 2 novels in 13 episodes. But I think that they've just introduced a lot of characters and a lot of elements. And it certainly felt, I don't think it's felt rushed, but certainly I don't think it's felt rushed because they cut the performances. Because
well, right. And so it's like, I think that all of the conflicts have had plenty of room to breathe. And I also, like, I saw a lot of people on Twitter being like, how are they possibly going to wrap this up in 4 episodes? And to be honest, I see it. Like, I don't think there's going to be any real problem because of the fact that we know that they've essentially said no music until nationals, basically. Is what I'm operating.
Because those are like 6-minute pieces. That's half an episode.
Oh yeah, huge chunks of it. Well, not even like literally the performance. There's also got to be like a couple minutes building up to the performance, and then probably a couple minutes right after like the announcements. You know, that's almost an entire episode, you know, when it's all said and done. So if you take out the fact that they're doing that, like the goal line for these conflicts is definitely in sight.
We said all the cards are on the table.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, like we just said, if you work backwards, you figure that episode 13 is probably completely an epilogue where you're definitely going to get a lot going on with Kumiko's future and everything, wrapping up with that. You know, episode 12 is assuredly going to be the nationals itself. And then you have 11 and 10 to deal with the Kansai conclusion of the fallout of this, you know.
And I even think the nationals
11 is probably nationals audition, and then 10 is sort of the build up to Kansai and the immediate continued fallout of what's been going on right now.
Kansai fallout. 11 could be kind of audition, win that shit back. 12 is nationals. And then 13 is, and that makes sense that Kansai is next week. That Asuka that's when she last showed up, was the Kansai competition. In season 2. I did like that one student. I don't remember if it was Symbols Chan or not, but that they're like, why do we think we're gonna just win Kansai? I mean, we did it last year. You know what I mean?
I said to you, I think that's like the first time all season somebody has been like, guys, I don't think that this isn't a guarantee. I was like, it's such a good point because they really have just been assuming that nationals is happening. Like,
we all are. I mean, listen, we know the fucking
But
deal, but you know what I mean?
we
Take it
got
seriously.
into our because like we know how stories work.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, they're not going to be the Sixers that they don't make the conference finals,
they're
but
not second round merchants.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're not second round merchants. They're gonna make the conference finals, but you know what I mean. Like they gotta earn that shit.
Yeah.
But so I think that there's space for that, and I think we kind of like said what we think, and we think that she's gonna listen. She's gonna be heartbroken. She's gonna be devastated. She's gonna have this Reina fallout next week in Kansai. She's gonna be devastated. She's gonna umaku naritai her way back. We know that she's gonna run across a bridge because it was in the original trailer for the season. Because by the way, if you didn't know, Kyoto Animation had finished this before it even aired. So when the first episode aired, the whole show was done. So that's crazy that we still haven't gotten a scene from the opening from the PV months ago that had her running on the bridge. That we haven't seen that yet because it's been done forever. So it's probably in the next 2 weeks, which is crazy. So she's gonna umaku naritai her way back to get her part back and her woman back. Nationals probably. Do you think they're gonna win? I think they're gonna win.
I think they're gonna win.
It'd be base if they don't, but I think they're gonna win.
It would be it'd be interesting if you could also say the same thing about Kumiko winning her solely back. But
I don't know how it works, but like, can they get dud gold at nationals? Because that would be a funny way.
No, I don't think
because gold. Because there's no
because at that point they just I don't know if the nationals will do like a specific like first, second, or third, or if they just like give out here like X amount of golds. But no, they can't do a dud gold because there's not another level for them to ascend to.
The World Cup of high school band.
Well, and so I think that them getting the nationals and not winning gold could be very narratively interesting. I don't know though if that is the theme that they've built towards.
I don't think the result matters toward the theme. I think it's like kind of like I don't think the result matters thematically. I just think it's like what's satisfying.
Well, for sure. Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is that like I don't know if the ways in which them not winning gold at nationals would be interesting. I don't know if they've really kind of like built towards that specifically. And to take advantage of that.
Yeah, not like
kind of feels like
1 and 2.
Yeah, exactly.
They got bronze, bro. They got fucked up.
At which point, like at that point, it kind of just feels like, okay, well then they should.
They were the Pacers. They were the Indiana Pacers in year 1. They got to the conference finals and got fucked up.
Yeah, that's true.
They really were.
Either that or they were the 8 seed Heat.
We got to the finals and got fucked up.
Finals, nationals.
Watch your and
finals.
If Josh Hart hadn't killed Jimmy Butler, we'd be having a different conversation. I'll digress. You can listen to Miami Heat Beat for that, my Miami Heat podcast. So yeah, I kind of think that's it. I think we kind of really unearthed and flipped over every rock. There's so much more we could talk about. Jack and I every Sunday it's like, hey, have you watched the episode? And we take turns being the first one to watch it, and then we discuss for the entire day. So this was kind of a condensed version of 9 weeks of this, but make sure to check out Sakugaburu's production notes blog post. It's exceptional. They have episodes 1 through 8 if you want real goodies on. We didn't talk much about a lot of the individual directors, but I think Ogawa has been, obviously Ishidate, who did episode 9 and I believe 5, which was the Agata Festival one. So he's handled the 2 big Kumirei set pieces. Obviously the standout episodes. I do think he has the single best directed episode at Kyoto Animation, which is the episode with Asuka, Kumiko at Asuka's house. I believe that's 10 or 9.
I think it's also 9.
It's a 9 in season 2, where she goes over to Asuka's. That's the best directed episode at Kyoto Animation. It's the best episode directed at a UFO. So
it's the one where where Asuka plays for her at the river at the end.
First one,
Yep.
Ogawa's been a standout. I think he's in the Yamada / Fujita role for this season, which is kind of an upgrade for him. And he's had some really amazing kind of episodes in Surune. He has like the best episode of Surune in my opinion.
Yeah.
He has like a couple other like really standout performances. Jack, there's a couple newbies.
Mei Isai has done an incredible job with the 2 storyboards that
she was
been
3
given.
and
I think
8.
it was 3 and 8, yeah, and there were some bangers in both those episodes. I mean, 3 was the episode with Sally, and then 8 last week. Man, yeah,
That was her debut. That was her debut as a director,
Yeah.
as an episode director. And 8 had another
Ryo
debutante.
Miyake, I believe, doing the direction, and then she did the storyboard. Yeah.
Ishidate hadn't done an episode since, I believe, Violet Evergarden.
It was free.
It was free.
Free season 3.
It's been a long time since Ishidate had done an episode. He's been basically animating, and I also believe that he animated the cut of Reina screaming at Kumiko on the bridge and the very goofy Mayu or Kanade run in slippers.
Yeah. I saw that he actually did some of this animation in this episode, which we could have spent an hour just talking about how expressive some of the character animation in this episode was. It was incredible. Not just like the
whole
dramatic
season,
parts
really.
too, but like there were just even the goofy bits, like when I love the like Hazuki when she came out of the store and felt the lukewarm wind. Yeah, like I mean, just everything.
Fuck, it's hot.
Oh god, all their.
If y'all been to Japan in June, let me tell you that shit. It's humid and muggy and brutal. I've been in Uji in June. It is hot, bro. It's fucking hot.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure summer's like the 4th out of 4 months seasons that I'll try to go to Japan.
It rains a lot. I'm telling you, I went for the Yata Matsuri, and boy did it, and it rained that day. It fucking rained a lot. I did get the hike, but so yeah, the production has just been stellar. I mean, I think Ishihara's episode was episode 2. He did a fantastic job. I mean, it's just been
did a fantastic job on the OP too.
He did. He cooked.
Yeah.
My old man still got it.
Yeah.
Old man still got it. I don't really, I don't know. I mean, Yamamura again had episode 7, which was the pool episode. Just
every episode we're gonna be like, oh yeah, that one was so good.
No, yeah, I'm going through the list of like the storyboarders and directors and kind of like, and it's just, it's just been classic Kyoto Animation. Kitsunohara, a veteran of the studio, kind of reprising that role. And I think, after the arson and how, not just the loss of life, but the people that, couldn't work there anymore and it became too difficult. I think there's been a lot of questions as to like, what are things going to look like? And I think May Dragon put a lot of that to rest in, was it 21? Because I know that May Dragon was the discourse darling. That after that episode 2, it really turned it around. And I think for both of us, it was one of the best anime of that year. And boy, did KyoAnu. It was fucking unreal.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
no, if anything, UFO season 3 has really just like sort of solidified or reaffirmed my belief in the future of the studio. I
mean, debutantes in like
it's
such
super interesting because nobody really knows, I guess, what's they're doing next, other than the fact that they have had that one project announced of 20th Century Electric Catalog or Railroad or whatever it is, but we haven't heard a word about that in years. It's fascinating because with UFO coming to a close, Free came to a close. Tsurune got its sequel, and I think there's a Tsurune movie. Is there coming out?
No, it already came out.
Oh, it already came out. Yeah.
Final Stroke. You need to watch it so that our group of friends can group watch the movie.
Yeah. No, wait, no, I'm talking about Tsurune.
Tsurune, I don't know if it's getting a movie.
Yeah. I know it had its second season though, but
I don't really like Tsurune very much. It's very okay.
I know you're not alone. I haven't actually seen season 2. I only saw season 1.
It's okay. It looks great, and they did a great job directing, but I think it's a little bit of a snooze fest. I like season 1. I think season 2 we didn't really. Who asked for that?
Yeah. So, but so it's the future of the studio in terms of like the actual projects that they're working on. Who knows? But in terms of the people making them, it's we're back.
Much like Hitauji, there is a tradition at Kyoto Animation, and there's as to use football terms, that is heritage.
Yeah, football heritage.
I am Jose Mourinho. For context, I've made several Jose Mourinho jokes. Jack hates Jose Mourinho. I find him delightful, not as a football
Anybody
coach, as a
anybody
dude.
who actually like lived through one of Mourinho's Chelsea stints.
Listen, I'm a Liverpool fan. The Gerrard slip, I was there, but I just find him entertaining, and I think that we're lucky that he didn't want to be a dictator in in the 1800s, because we'd all be, we'd live in a different world. That man, if he was the Kitauji advisor,
Oh God.
they'd all fall in line.
Yeah.
He might tell certain people to fuck off and kick them off the club, but they'd go places.
They'd go somewhere. That's correct.
They'd go somewhere. Europa League.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I promised Jack that this would be 45 minutes, and I think we went an hour and a half. So I'm sorry about that, but we had a lot to talk about.
I'm glad that you offered to do this, because as soon as I finished the episode, I was sitting there thinking about the fact that, like, how the hell am I going to talk about this in 60 seconds? Doing my shorts that I've been doing for each episode each week. So now, thankfully, I don't have to worry about that. Because at the end of my short this week, I get to just point to this.
The takes are out.
The rest of it, yeah,
yeah. So this will be out by the time that your thing goes in, and yeah, man. So hopefully we can do this again at the end of the season, or I don't know if something interesting comes. Maybe we'll do a shorter one to just talk about that one episode. But it was fun. I love UFO. Huh?
You said we'll do a shorter one. Famous last words.
Famous last words. But yeah, I love UFO, and you know that I wasn't gonna go without talking about it. And I am a podcaster by trade, so this is, I've been doing my Miami Heat podcast for 11 years, so I will gas bag about anything.
It's almost like, I've been admiring the difference in backdrop here. It's almost like one of us is a seasoned podcaster who's been on camera weekly for however long.
Didn't you just do it? Didn't you? You've done an anime podcast more recently than I have.
That's true. Yeah, this is not my first on-camera appearance. This isn't even the first one in the past few months. So if you want to see that one, go check out Be More Brass.
The GOAT.
For me to talk about UFO before it started. So
Be More Brass has to watch UFO. I know that he hasn't, but
we're working on that. Yeah.
He has to get on that. So shout out to our friends. Gotta get Replay Value, who's also our friend, to watch UFO. Does Replay like UFO?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Is he normal about UFO? Yes.
It's funny because we have group chats with like other friends in Annie Twitter, and they're so normal about UFO. They like it. They're like, this is a really good show, and they're normal about it. And Jack and I are like, fucking, we're weird otaku about it. We're like,
we're Reina, and UFO is our Taki.
Do you remember that scene in season 1, episode 4, minute 16? Like, and it'd be that way.
Yeah.
It fucking be that way. So shout out to the audience, shout out to Jack, shout out to everybody, and hopefully we'll see you back at the end of the season or before that. And so